my name is Gerhard Schwantner and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of meeting with Melissa Madian, and she's Vice President of Sales Enablement with Vision Critical. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
So what interests me the most is your background in storytelling and also your husband's background as a screenwriter. Tell us about it.
Both of us, when we were growing up, were always huge, avid readers. Our parents read to us before we could actually read, and then we've consumed books all the time. I still consume books all the time. But for him, he's always had a passion for screenwriting, and not too long ago, he decided he was going to pursue it full time. And so stories are pretty much a part of our everyday life.
So you're also in sales enablement, and storytelling is vital to the sales profession. What have you learned as a story reader and you're conversing with your husband about crafting a story? What should we learn from you?
Yeah, so what's interesting about stories is people remember them. So you may not necessarily remember a product feature that you see or what was exactly in the demo that got shown to you, but you'll always remember the story that the vendor tells you. And so from a sales enablement perspective, I try to make sure that we let our teams know that the story that you tell the prospective buyer is going to be the story that they remember. And it's even more important that you tell them their story and not just any story. So, telling any random story is not going to do it. But if you tell them a story about how they can benefit from our products, then that's what's going to resonate with them far more than whatever the product was that we were showing to them.
Right. So give me an example from a movie that is a compelling story that everybody remembers.
Sure. So Star Wars is probably the most classic story that folks remember if they've seen it, and most folks have seen Star Wars. Or if you haven't seen Star Wars, go see it. It's a great movie. But if you think about the character's journey, so Luke Skywalker starts out as a young, naive farm boy on a distant planet, and he has these droids fall into his lap, and he's kind of shocked out of his status quo when he finds out that there's this thing called the Force, and there's this massive battle going on with the Empire. Right. And he then goes on a journey, basically. He goes on a journey of getting these droids to the planet, and the planet's gone, and then he sort of all of a sudden gets thrown into this series of events and goes on this great journey of becoming a Jedi and trying to learn the Force. And then what's really interesting, though, is he then gets sort of taken down a downward path, which is learns that Luke learns that Darth Vader's his father. He gets his hand chopped off. Everything looks like it's going to be lost for the rebellion. And then suddenly he finds a new path and ends up defeating the Empire and reconciles with his father, and everybody lives happily ever after. So it's a great example of how a character is taken on a journey, a story, and how he starts one way and ends up another way. And certainly all of those elements of that story can be then applied to any story that we tell to anybody, really.
So it is sort of the drama as it evolves. There's an element of suspense all the time because you don't know what's happening at the next turn of events, and how does the character then get what he or she wants.
Exactly. And there's always conflict. Every good story has to have conflict. So in the context of selling, we want to make sure as a vendor, we paint the picture not just of how the buyer could ultimately benefit from a product or a solution, but also what their current conflict might be and how they need to get out of it, potentially.
Right. Give me a story from business that is sort of following the same suspense in that we know from Luke Skywalker.
Sure. So when you approach a potential buyer or a potential candidate, as vendors, we need to show them how our product or solution is actually going to help them through their own journey. So to come to a vendor or come to a buyer and say, hey, we're great, and here's all of our products and features, it's not really going to resonate with the buyer. But if you approach the buyer and say, hey, Mr. Buyer, I know that this is your current situation. This is how your world looks right now. And you take all of these steps to do things, or maybe you're struggling down here, or maybe you're losing money in this aspect of your business, and that kind of sucks.
You actually invite the buyer through your story to take a role in a journey that you're describing, where they realize that it's a struggle out there. There are a lot of evil forces. There's a lot of competition, and there's a battle for market share. And there is the reward that you can have a more profitable company, lower your cost, and be victorious, essentially, right?
You're making the buyer Luke, and you're telling the story of how that buyer is experiencing the struggle, but that there is a better way and that there is a happy ending.
So then a salesperson, I assume, in your mind, when you train them, you want to tell them how to amplify the conflict and the tension. So you almost have them visualize the pain. And on the other hand, make it more attractive and tell them that the gain is closer than they think.
Exactly, and the key too is that conflict. So one of the reasons why human beings love stories is because of that conflict. You kind of want to experience what the hero of the story is experiencing. You
Right.
want them to overcome that conflict. The more you can paint that conflict for your buyer, the more likely they are to feel uncomfortable themselves because you're willing to light that pain for them, but also showing them the way that they can experience a new way and they can get out of that conflict and live happily ever after. We're sort of conditioned as human beings to want to be taken on that journey. It's why people enjoy reading books. It's why people enjoy going to movies. You go into a movie theater, you kind of expect to be sitting there for 2.5 hours or 2 hours and get taken on a journey with this character, with this hero. So why not apply that to our selling techniques?
So Melissa, are there a couple of books that you could recommend to our audience that they read in order to get up to speed about telling better stories?
Sure. So if they're interested in just understanding the construct of screenwriting and how screenwriting actually resonates with individuals, so really from the mechanics of storytelling, there's a great book called Save the Cat, which is written by a screenwriter, and he goes through the process of here are all the constructs or all the components of an effective screenplay and why it works with people. From a business standpoint, there's conversations that win the complex sale, and that's by Tim Reister and the folks at Corporate Visions, and that's an excellent book about how you can leverage storytelling techniques in a conversation with a potential buyer.
Why is it so difficult to get salespeople and sales organizations to become better storytellers?
It's a great question. I think we come to the table thinking this is a job, and my job is to be a salesperson, and as a salesperson, I must go out and close business. And certainly managers and VPs drive our sellers to that point, right? We've got a quota we got to hit. You need to hit that quota. If you don't hit that quota, you don't make money, and then you end up living in a van down by the river. So I think why we struggle is because we're so focused on the bottom line number, we're not actually thinking about how the buyer is experiencing the process with us. And when we start to change our focus on how is the buyer interacting with our brand and how is the buyer interacting with me, and as a human being, how do I want to be interacted with? I think that's when you can start to change the selling mindset of I'm here to close business and close deals to I'm here to help our buyers, and I'm going to tell a great story about how our buyer can leverage our products and services. And because I'm telling a great story and because the buyer then trusts me with this journey that I'm going to take them on, that will ultimately allow me to close business. So it's definitely a different mindset. It's a mindset shift for sure.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. You've been very helpful, very insightful. I learned a lot.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much.